back in Beirut, right? They Stan and Richards meet up with some Armenians. They get them into this safe house. We get this interesting scene where I guess Hurley is looking at where the embassy used to be, or near where the embassy was bombed, and like you mentioned before, we get a lot of introspection from, or even like extrospection from Hurley, learning about his past. And this is almost like a Stan Hurley book.
Absolutely.
It really could be a Stan Hurley book. I mean, Mitch Rapp is the
Absolutely.
main character, but it's also a Stan Hurley book.
And it's the transition. It's him teaching and bequeathing the lessons and the skills to the next generation. Right. I love the story when we hear we're going to have to do a podcast of just everything Stan Hurley, just all these little snippets and backstory. Like maybe if Kyle does write an earlier book in this time period, we got to do a podcast where we give little snippets of what we've heard so far about Hurley. For example, with the embassy bombing, he was supposed to be there because there was a meeting of the CIA.
He was
top
having
brass,
sex.
and he was out. But it was some crazy thing. Like
he was at a mission. Then he had he had to go back.
The informant wanted to pay him and impress him, so he got him these two women, and so he went with them, completely blowing off this really important CIA meeting. Well, anyway, that's the reason he survived and wasn't at the blast. But
Stan's sex life saved his life.
Every one of these little snippets, I loved it. I ate it up.
And it's a little graphic, but like the whole stuff that he talks about with Roddy in the second part about his mom. He like won't let it up. And even as a reader, you're thinking like,
it's too much.
Wait, is he actually telling the truth, or is it
did he sleep with his mom?
Did he sleep with his mom, or
I don't
is it
put
just
it
a
past
bit?
him.
I don't know, and I think even like one of like even maybe Syed's like maybe he's telling the truth.
Yeah, he questions himself. We got to get to that interrogation though, because as graphic as it is what Hurley's doing, and we've had some comments already talking about the infamous ear scene, biting off the ear,
a little Mike Tyson action.
What he's doing, the shtick, is perfect because Hurley knows how these things go down. Once you're taken, he knows what these motherfuckers are capable of, right?
Right.
Right. And no one knows
his job
more
is
than
to
him.
piss them off and get them to kill him, essentially.
Right. He's got to either piss them off so much that they kill him, or he's got to sow so much dissent between the factions and giving so many lies that he's not worth a damn. Because, you're only worth the intelligence they can get out of you. And he knows he'll break eventually. But before he breaks, if he can just completely screw them up with different stories and false intelligence and mix it in, he knows he'll get the upper hand. And he's really good at pissing off Syed and Roddy, and they're going at each other. Roddy wants to kill him. Syed tells him not to. He won't tell him his name. He
William
pulled a Jack
Tecumseh
Meoff.
Sherman.
And he pulled a Jack Meoff.
It's like, really?
I haven't heard that one since like 2005.
High school.
Yeah, even earlier. Oh, it's so funny. I mean, the Taken bit, though, was that a little anticlimactic for you? Hurley and Richards at this hotel. He walks out, smokes a cig. He's going to go to like a convenience store. He's like, I can go left or right. Guess it doesn't matter. Turns left and is in some neighborhood. He notices some cars that weren't there the night before. And then the police just crash on him. I was like, well, that's how Hurley gets taken. So
I think the one guy, what is it, Prigozhin or
Petroj? Oh, Ridley's
Petrosian?
friend. Yeah, Ridley's friend.
The Armenian, right?
True.
He was like, wait, why? And it's interesting because I think even maybe this is we're catching something here, but Vince mentions that they get brought in by Armenians, but it's obviously not Petrosian because later on in the chapter, he's like, why didn't Stan come to me? Like I would have protected him or whatever. Yeah. So it's a different group of Armenians, I guess. But
or I think they're doing it for money. I think at one point Ridley says the police shouldn't have done that. Petrosian knows those police are good, but he also knows they'll turn to the highest bidder.
Sure.
So I can send Petrosian in and get the police back on our side, who can then help us go find him. And I guess it's just the local authorities are that willing to switch on a dime.
But it's probably a little bit of cockiness by Stan. This is
Yeah.
Stan's territory. He was stationed here for a very long time. He thinks he can come back in, and it's like
Thinks
old
the
times.
game's the same.
Thinks the game's the same, and it's obviously not. People spotted him at the airport. They obviously you have Syed, you have Islamic Jihad, you have Fatah, all like waiting to get you.
Yep.
And he should have been more careful. He slipped up. He should have been more careful.
And that's kind of like we were talking with Fred with William F. Buckley. Like, we couldn't believe the station chief just lived off complex and walked the city and went to play tennis and whatever. And I guess that's kind of reminiscent of what Hurley's doing here. He's just out going to a convenience store without realizing the terrorists are reading our weakness and getting even more aggressive.
Maybe Hurley thinks that no one would ever be smart enough, dumb enough to take Stan Hurley or Bill Sherman as they know him, right? So
yeah, no, that's true.
Back in the day, no one would have dared touch Bill Sherman. So
no, you're right.
But the game has changed, and maybe Hurley doesn't realize how much it has changed.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Before we move on, I see it in the chat. I got to read the quote about biting the ear. We just need an example of the kind of shit Hurley is pulling here, right? Like, this is legendary. Roddy's mom's the prostitute, not stopping about it, saying his name to jack me off, Ulysses S. Grant, William Tecumseh Sherman. And then he goes so far as to really want to piss these guys off. Quote, Hurley unleashed a gob of blood and the one busted tooth from his mouth. The bulk of it hit Roddy in the face. With his arms tied behind his back and his legs taped to the chair, Hurley started bouncing the chair an inch at a time towards the two men, snapping his teeth and barking like a dog. The movie did that well, at least.
Well, I was going to bring that up because I think we've said this before, but Michael Keaton was a great casting for Stan Hurley. And that whole scene where Ghost is doing that interrogation and immediately he starts off in the bat like being like, yeah, let's go. Like, come on, give it to me.
Yep.
And like that's exactly word from word, like from the chapter.
From the book. Yep.
And when, he starts pulling off the fingernails and he's like, oh, that felt good. Like
round two.
Michael Keaton did a great job expressing
Absolutely.
that. And I really think he captured, at least Hurley from the pages, what I saw.
Absolutely.
Or read. So
that one scene and Michael Keaton just being that crazy, wily bastard during the interrogation was the closest to the book I think you got. And you kept the ear scene. Like, that's one thing. Out of all the things they decided to keep,
they kept the ear scene.
They kept that. At least it's something.
They kept the ear scene.
Yeah. Should we talk, just to wrap it up, about the bad guys? Although I'm going to be honest, in my winners and losers, that will probably, at least the Russian side of things, be one of my few losers of the book. But I feel like we should just wrap it up with, like, we know the Russians and the Iranians had a role in Beirut and the Middle East at this time. And I think Vince is trying to explore how the director of the SVR, and actually I believe Directorate S, who is the actual program of the illegals and the undercover operatives on the ground. So the director of that program is financially supporting Fatah, the Palestinian organization, Islamic Jihad, and all these other groups through a joint bank account. And therefore Ivanov's got to get in the game. And when that money is taken, and when he hears there's American agents in captivity, he needs to one-up Islamic Jihad and, pull his power card and go in there and get those guys and get his money back. What do you think of the Russian involvement here?
Yeah, we're almost an hour into this podcast. We're just not bringing up the villains.
And we got to get to the covers. Don't forget the covers.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't, I don't know, the villains here, you could replace them with anybody. They're not, I don't know. They were okay. I like the Syed character. He was interesting, and learning about him and like the whole Syrian aspect to it. But yeah, like the whole Russian subplot, it was almost not needed. It just added this extra element to it. I guess it was more so to, like you said, to show what was actually going on in that time, in that region. But yeah, I think, they're definitely the losers for me for this book.
Right.
My Mac's going to die, so I'm just going to plug it in. But I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess one last thing, though, on the terrorist, when you're talking about it, I really like the dynamics of the Middle Eastern group with the Palestinians, the Syrians. It was the Russian subplot I didn't like. And another thing I like about that is Imad Mughniya. And I had no idea Imad Mughniya was one of the world's most wanted terrorists at the time. And he was directly responsible for a lot of the kidnappings and probably a lot of the bombings. And all that just made me appreciate more what Vince was doing there. Also disappointing that the Russians didn't have that level of exposition and explanation of their backgrounds. But when Fred told us Imad Mughniya was one of the actual main names they were after, or the most wanted, oh boy.
Sorry.
When the kids come down, decide to have a midnight party in the laundry room there. No, but Fred gave us the wanted poster for the real Mughniya. And so just that level of detail that Vince is bringing, real characters, real history, real personalities, and capturing them in fiction, I think is awesome. And the wanted poster was just a shock to me that we were tracking these guys. We had the Rewards for Justice program willing to pay upwards of multiple millions of dollars for tips that would lead to their capture. And I think that was really great. One other way, though, the real life is brought into this is Rob Ridley, which a few weeks ago, Rob Richer told us is his character. And so I can't help but think a lot of this. All right. You're all charged up here.
Yeah.
I can't help but think a lot of the conversations Ridley has up on this hill overlooking Beirut are real things that Rob Richer would have told Vince about. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah. And I love this. Again, this is a character we see a lot. We've seen a lot in like the most recent books preceding American Assassin. And then we're going to see him again in the future. But it's cool, like, seeing this guy he's only been stationed there, 5-7 years? So he's pretty early in his game. And he's, I don't know, he's wearing, like, a UPS outfit. He's the guy who, like, although Vince doesn't say UPS, but, yeah, and he's the guy who, like, leaves the packages. But we get all this cool information about, like, the Marines who would set up shop as snipers and shoot down the green line in order to, like, tell people back off. Yeah, no, I that's definitely, I could see that as information that maybe Vince had learned from Rob Richer. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like, the Americans were getting picked off, and they called in this set of Marine snipers, and within like 5 days, they racked up like 30 kills. And they stopped getting shot at. Like, that was it.
Right.
They went back to hide in their caves.
They were good to go.
Yeah. So Ridley's the one who's going to mastermind Rapp's final mission, right? To save Hurley here. And Ridley is even telling him, like, you're freaking nuts. Like, you should not cross that line. The second you go over there, you're going to be captured. Ridley's just confused. And Rapp says, I have to do this, right? I have to go. And the one thing Ridley can offer is the relationships. And I think Rob Richer must have told Vince about this, why we have the Petrosian character. Like, Ridley has to have somebody on the other side with influence and sway, and know the authorities and the different power dynamics, or else Rapp would have no chance over there. So Ridley tells him, like, where to go. This Petrosian guy gets the cops to stay out of the way and let him cross. And then when Rapp gets there, he has a radio, and he's able to tip off, I guess it was like a street vendor who's selling, like, spare parts. And the street vendor passes on that he heard word of an American being kept in a basement at Martyr Square. And so Rapp is able to radio that back to Ridley, and that's right when he gets taken. So I like this network of relationships supporting Rapp in what he's about to do. And that's how Ridley got the intel where Hurley's going to be held.
And I like the, like, Mitch plays it like a dumb,
right.
He's a dumb. He's not obviously not an operative, not a trained operative. So
his son.
Yeah,
he's saying he's there because he's his son.
Eventually, but in the beginning, like, he's, a normal operative wouldn't go around saying, "I'm looking for Syed. I'm looking for Americans," and he telling everybody.
I think he had a map
with a map, like waving American money. That's not how you do it. That's exactly how you get taken.
Right.
And obviously these guys are like, oh, he's an idiot. So they completely underestimate him.
Exactly.
And then as soon as Roddy finds out or thinks that it's his son, that's like the ultimate nail in the coffin. So
because the terrorists would be like, why would you ever come here? You know it's a death sentence. Rapp plays his cards perfectly because the only reason an untrained kind of dumbfounded kid would go in there is if it's his dad, right? If it's a family member, you have to go. And so the terrorists buy it, hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
Which is kind of what Rapp was doing at the training scene by not revealing his full athletic potential.
Exactly.
When he's running, he's holding back so people underestimate him so that he can have the upper hand. And man, just Vince nails it then, nails it here. It all comes together.
It does. What do you think? I guess the very last thing we have here is the scene where Rapp comes in and says, "Dad, I'm gonna get you out of here." And then you see this calculation, like immediately Hurley realizes what Rapp's doing.
Right.
Rapp is tracking the gun, is able to get the gun. Hurley springs into action. Oh, I guess first. So they put a blade in his scalp or in his hair? In his hair.
I think he weaved. Rapp's always had somewhat long hair. I think he weaved it in. So when his hands were behind his head, he can get the razor blade. But he doesn't even use it to cut. He tries to cut the duct tape on his wrists. He couldn't even cut it the full way. He thought he'd be able to. So with his hands duct taped together, he still grabs the gun by the nozzle and is able to flip it up with duct taped hands, in the air, catch it with the handle and trigger so that he can use it. That was pretty badass.
That was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah. And then I think it's Hurley who's like, "Hey kid, give me the gun. You take the knife." And Rapp's like, "Hell no, this is my gun." And Hurley realizes, fine. I feel like Hurley's growing as well throughout this book in really big ways. And it's not just Rapp being turned into an assassin. It's Hurley becoming a better teacher.
Yeah, I think Hurley begins to realize in the beginning he didn't want to believe in Mitch's potential because he didn't find Mitch, and Mitch is not he's not a Navy SEAL. He's not a Marine. He's not an Army Ranger. Mm-hmm. Someone who's used to following orders. Right. And that's what Hurley's been trying to groom, and unsuccessfully, I'll say that. But he's realizing that, this guy actually, there's that scene where he asks him, why did you kill Syed? And then, that was everything did great except for the fact that he quickly, he gives him a small little rebuke, but then he's like, all right, you shouldn't have sat down next to him, don't make it personal, right? So quickly, I'm sure it's a little bit judgy, but he's also training. And then you see this progression more and more and more where he's no longer being mean. There's always going to be those Hurleyisms to it, right? But he is truly trying to train this kid and help him survive because he sees this guy has the potential to be the next me, be better than me. So
right. And he's coming to grips with that.
Exactly.
And Irene, the little girl he raised, he has to stop seeing as just a little girl and being the full-grown woman and boss. She's his boss, essentially, and he's got to come to terms with that. And I think we see his arc in this book. It's like one of the comm majors said on our movie review, this very well could have been a Stan Hurley movie, and this book very much was a Stan Hurley book and the arc that he's on. And I freaking loved it. It gets me hyped for Killshot. I want the Ohlmeyers back. I want more Greta. I want more Hurley. Let's keep the train going. And so Killshot is a coming.
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, at the very end, Mitch has this plot to sort of, have the two factions in the square fight against each other.
Right.
Causes a distraction, chaos. Allows him to get out of there.
Steals the car. And he intercepts the Russian.
Right.
The assistant.
The assistant. Yeah. And that's what leads to we already talked about it, but the very final chapter where Stansfield's able to get back his man by trading information and money, not the Russian, because the Russian is a defector.
Gonna keep him.
But
yeah.
Gonna keep him.
He wants to stay.
But yeah, I guess, we mentioned a little bit of the losers, but I don't know. I feel like Vince does sometimes. We mentioned this a couple times. Like finishing some books, like the climaxes are always great, but then like the chapters after that are sometimes a little bit disappointing. Like, I mean, I guess I always want more, right? So,
right, getting
out of that, once they got free, I would have liked more seeing getting out of there. But you know, it was good. This is a bad example of it because I still think it was good, but yeah.
I agree. It was almost Transfer of Power-esque in the ending of
they
hit the White House, they free the hostages, and it's like
boom, they're done. They're in the building next door.
Yeah, I just remember you didn't get that scene fully. Same thing here. I wanted Rapp and Hurley. The whole book was about after a kill, the fallout after the kill, and I feel like here I wanted a little more of the fallout after the escape.
Right.
Rendezvousing with Ridley, who was able to use local context and maybe something like the UPS uniforms again to kind of sneak out, or they have to establish contact with Irene and let them know they have this Russian guy who was involved, and so they could put pressure on the State Department and go that route. And we didn't really explore it. There was an epilogue, small little chat about it, but they just kind of got out, took the car, and were like, peace, we're good. I really want to know what they put on the radio, like U2? Bob Seger?
I always want, and to think about it, this is kind of a short book. Like
it was actually
in 66 chapters. Like,
yeah,
definitely not the longest. So
on the shorter side, probably. So
yeah, but
we always want more. We're always greedy.
Very, very good book.
All right, but the winner's Hurley. Come on.
Oh,
now.
For sure. No, I can't even argue with you. The winner is
100%.
Definitely Hurley.
And that might be like the biggest winner we've had on any list of our winners and losers. Hurley is such a big winner. He's such a big winner. It catapults this book. I'm going to say, Chris, into the top 5.
Ooh, okay.
Into the top 5. That's how much I like the Hurley arc.
What I let you do the notes for the discussion thread for this one. You left out our ratings and rankings.
I left out the ratings. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit of a surprise here for each other.
Okay. All right. So, what are you giving this?
Memorial Day still on top. Transfer of Power still up there. I'm put in the top 5. I'm not sure if it's 3, 4, or 5. I'd have to think about that more, but it is easily an A. I mean, I know I think Memorial Day an A- because we were doing some of the other things. I don't like the system we've done. I feel like we need to rejudge and recurve our system here. So I'm giving this an A. It's not the number 1 spot, but I have to give it an A. Everything is so well done. The tiny minor foibles I have with the Russian subplot, fine. The little trip to Geneva was so well done, I didn't care that it was a distraction from the main plot. Another little tiny critique. Where did Doc Lewis go in the second half? I would have liked a small role for him.
And we don't see him much in the rest of the series, which is kind of upsetting.
No. Yeah, we don't see him much. So I felt like that was such a great character the first half, but he fell out. Same way Ridley was such a great character in the second half, but he didn't come back. Greta, as we've already said, does not play a major role beyond this book in Killshot. She was like a side story. I would hope those were explored or weaved in a little more. If the book had a little more meat to it, would have been nice. But I'm giving it an A. I still like Memorial Day better as a book, but I'm going 9.5.
Wow. So one of our listeners right now posted their top 6, with American Assassin being 6. I
put it above Extreme Measures.
It's above Extreme Measures.
Lethal Agent. It's above Lethal Agent.
It's below Memorial Day and Consent to Kill. I love both those books. I really like Lethal Agent. That's probably like Kyle's best book.
I think it's Kyle's best, but I would still put American Assassin higher.
Transfer of Power 2 is really good. I think, but this book might be above Transfer of Power.
Well, this book is absolutely a better written book than Transfer of Power.
Well, but that's Vince's second or first Mitch book, right? So,
right. This is a better written book. I still think Transfer of Power is higher on my rankings. I like nostalgia, and that one is just a classic and an OG. So, might be higher, but I will say American Assassin, I think, is the better written book. All right, you got to tell us your numbers and your letters.
Oh, well, so I'm a stickler for rules. So we set up the situation. So I have to give it around what I gave Memorial Day, which was like an A-, which is I feel bad giving this book an A-, but actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm giving it an A.
Yes.
And it's a 9.5.
Yes.
It's a 9.5.
Let's go. Let's go. Forget our earlier ratings. We can't play this game trying to judge it with the curve of what we did in the past. Let's give it its due, and this one deserves a 9.5.
It's
probably
a 9.5.
Means if we go back, I would give Memorial Day a 9.8, to be honest. But
yeah, to be honest, yeah.
This deserves an A, 9.5. I would probably give Transfer Power an A-, 9.4, 9.3, but this one deserves it. But you know what might not deserve a lot of praise?
What is that?
I think you could see it on your screen right here. And I think it's not the first, not the second, but I think it just might be the third one you see on that little image.
The dreaded Cover C. This may be the worst Cover C ever.
Maybe? Did you say maybe? You say maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
This is 100%, hands down, the absolute worst cover of any book that has ever been published and gone to print. Chris, you got to look in your phone. Do you remember that text I sent you?
Oh, yeah.
I actually put it in the notes. I think I
have
it
it.
In the notes.
Yeah, you put it in the notes so I could read it. Let me just read it. All of a sudden, I'm at work. Mike texts me. Let me just read you his stream of consciousness text.
This was the moment I first saw Cover C. Never in my life I've seen it. This was my first reaction.
Mike is the one who puts together these beautiful, I have to say, they're beautiful little cover panels. And for American Assassin, there was a lot. We went up all the way to cover S. So Mike just texts me. He says, "Oh my goodness. Oh my. No. Absolutely not. Holy shit. I can't. No. I can't. This is not fair. Please, please, please tell me this cannot be true. I'm literally crying right now. And I don't know whether it's from tears or laughter. Probably a bit of both. But seriously, this is affecting me on a large scale. I need to talk to a shrink like Doc Lewis. I'm not fucking around. I feel soulless. This is what despair feels like. This is an abomination of all that is good and holy." He says this book is permanently banned from our Museum of Flynn, aka the Flynnseum. I just get these like texts one after another, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there doing some experiments, and I go back and I look at all these texts, and I was just like, where are you getting to? And then finally you said Cover C.
That was a real text. I had a moment of just crisis and despair. I was drifting. I was just drifting. I couldn't pull myself.
So I guess
together.
this is the origin of the power lines.
There are like 18 different power lines. Like,
I guess we should comment here because this is also going to be a podcast in audio format. But yeah, so Cover C is just a man and a lot of power lines.
They double down on the power lines, man. They double down.
That whole line just makes me so depressed. Like, literally, someone who never read a single, like,
he's got a trench coat in the desert. Why? You tell me, Chris, would you see rolling deserts and wear a trench coat in Zurich? In Geneva?
No.
Downtown Beirut?
No.
Downtown Istanbul?
No.
What? All right, but there is sun. It is sunny out. The sun is reflecting off the roads. Right. The sun is reflecting off the power lines. Why is he wearing a trench coat with his head? And who is he? Who's wearing a trench coat? I keep saying he is wearing a trench coat. Who is it? That could be a she. They are wearing a trench coat. I'm done. I'm absolutely done.
I agree. One of our Facebook friends said we need Fred Burton to come back and hunt down the guy who appeared on all the Cover Cs. We need to get like what's the program Fred runs? The
Rewards for Justice.
Yeah, we need some rewards.
20 mil for 40 mil. Double that.
Whichever analyst, or not analyst, marketing agent, designer, thought
approved that.
it was
Who approved it?
I guess the Flynn family must have approved it.
Really, I don't think they go that far into every single cover line.
You know, I bet you Cover C came out in the in-between. In the in-between. I bet you that book series was published when Vince wasn't alive and when Kyle hadn't started yet.
I don't want to talk about it. I really don't. I have PTSD from it. I really do.
Let's get to some ones we liked, okay? We talked about the ones we don't like. It's always Cover C. But let's get to some ones we actually enjoy.
So we've got the classics. A and E are both similar covers. A is the classic red and black with a silver star. And E is the same exact scheme with a star on this kind of like gritty wall. It looks like a metallic surface. So
could be the room that Stan Hurley is captured in.
Ooh, I like that. Very well could be. And the star could be the stars on the wall at the CIA. And right. I like to think
that's what I always imagine them as the silver stars that they have at the CIA.
Right.
I don't know. I really enjoy the simple covers that they have for A, D, and E.
I think though, it might be, or the intentionality might have been William F. Buckley's star. How heavy an influence his story and his sacrifice played on who Hurley is and what he's been through, who Stansfield is, who Rob Ridley is. I feel like this whole book could be a nod to Bill Buckley, and I love seeing that star on the cover. You don't need anything more. It's a great tribute.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's just do a couple more, and then what do you think? Because we have, 20-something covers? How about we do a Rap on Rap episode for our patrons where we break down the rest of the covers? But, Chris, before we do that, so we'll stay on afterwards. We'll do a full cover breakdown. You guys are welcome to stay, and then we'll also release that for our patrons later on as a special patron-only episode. But if you were to pick maybe 3 covers to review, which one's your gold, your silver, and your bronze? Because we have a follower, Jared McCarran, who thought, why don't you guys do gold, silver, and bronze for your top 3 covers each book?
That's a good idea.
Shout out to him. You could follow him at Jared, MACARIN on Twitter. Thanks for the idea. So, Chris, if you were to pick 3, give us your gold, silver, bronze.
All right, so I really like D, which is like the columns. I'm guessing that's one of the memorials. The Lincoln, I guess. That would be the Lincoln Memorial with the star. So my gold would have to be E, which is like we always said, that the gray wall background could be a prison, could be something with the solo star. My silver would be A, which is the silver star. What is that, a background of DC? The Capitol building? I can't really see it.
Possibly Jefferson, if we zoom in.
Jefferson.
That's the Jefferson. Yep, Jefferson Memorial.
I don't even want to talk about F because it's the cover of the movie. So I can't give that. I kind of like I. It's this eagle with the American flag. I like the colors of Vince Flynn and what does that say? I'm not even going to pronounce it. It's in some other language.
Yeah.
So that would be my my bronze.
A lot of people did like that one. I think it's maybe Czech, somewhere. It looks like southeastern Europe with the eagle, which is pretty cool. Here, I'll put all of them up because, like I said, we've got a ton of pages of them. A little hard to see, but you know what? A little bit of a wild card. My favorite is N. Can we talk about N for a quick second?
Okay.
That bench, and by the way, I think that language is Thai, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we've ever seen a cover with a quite obscure language. I believe those are Thai characters. But that bench, man, covered in blood, it just gets at the grittiness, the gore of what psychologically Rapp is going through and doing with that Sharif scene, his first kill. I think that cover is a nod to Rapp's first kill ever, which is a watershed moment. And I think it's ballsy to put a bench covered in blood with, I think, a hand. I think you see a hand. A dead hand laying across it all bloodied up. I think that's a ballsy move. I think that's bold. So I think that's my gold.
All right.
I'm going with cover N for my gold. I'm a big fan of that one. I kind of like these international ones a little bit. Silver. The classic, probably just the straight A or E. I think both of those are just really nice. The originals. Can't go wrong with that. Bronze, third place.
Cover C.
Yeah, cover C, is definitely going to get it. No, I think it's just pretty badass, that H one. With the guy,
the H one is cool with the gun.
With the flag in the background.
You could see that being the scene where Mitch is like looking at the mirror, and because
right,
I like a cover where it doesn't spoil the book to me, but it's a cool scene where after I've read it and then I look at the cover, I can think about that scene again. That's
right.
what I really that's a good cover to me. So,
all right. I think that about does it for our covers. Great book. We both rated it rather highly.
Yeah.
Part 2. Done and dusted.
Done and dusted. We got 2 people still listening to us.
All right, look at that. They stayed around till the very end. What do you think that means in terms of where we go next? We got Kill Shot and then Last
Kill Shot
Man. So
may be my favorite cover.
Only 2 more Vince books. And then we get to Kyle, is that right?
Yeah, that's it. We're getting there.
Wow, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've already done Lethal Agent and Total Power, so 7 if you include Enemy at the Gates. 7 books to go on the Mitch Rapp podcast.
We are getting there. That was great. Thank you to you guys who stuck around. I almost didn't make it there. When I went to go plug in my computer, I kind of zapped the shit out of myself.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it I don't know. I gotta fix. Maybe I have some sort of faulty thing. But yeah, I almost died mid pod.
Oh my god, are you serious? Did you felt the shock?
Oh yeah, it went all up my body, and my arm was convulsing for a little bit. It wasn't good.
Is there a doctor in the house?
I just have an NP, but she's upstairs.
Oh my goodness! You might want to go talk to Caroline and ask her to look at you for a second.
I'm gonna call an electrician. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, you might not want that piping and that exposed wall behind you to have bad electrical wires.
Right next to my sump pump. So live action, That's what happens when you do a live podcast. You never know what you're gonna get. At least I didn't drop my computer, and the computer is still going. So
if you left me solo here on this thing, I would have been like, "Crap's he dead?"
What if I just never came back?
You just never came back? That would have been terrible. I do have Caroline's numbers, so I would have been able to call. Oh my goodness!
All right, so what are we covering next week, Mike?
Next week, we hope to forward in the month of July to Kill Shot.
Yes. And again, we have to thank our patrons, including our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. Find us online at mitrappod.com or using our Twitter handle at mitrappod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not affiliated with Vince Flynn, Kyle Mills, or Simon & Schuster, but thank you to them for bringing us the wonderful world of rap. And the music soundtrack is Guerrilla Tactics by Raphael Crux.